Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honoured to speak on Bill 209, the Cost of Public Services Transparency Act. And I'd like to thank the honourable member from Red Deer South for introducing this legislation. I have a great deal of respect for this member. He's a lawyer and an accountant, having an in-depth knowledge of taxation. And it's incredibly beneficial to work with someone with his qualifications. And I'm thankful for the occupations that he holds and for him occupying a seat in this legislature. So thank you, member. Mr. Speaker, our government was elected to focus attention on jobs, economy, and fiscal responsibility. Part of that mandate deals with increasing revenues and reducing government spend with the goal of a balanced budget. Albertans told us when we were going door to door that they were worried about fiscal mismanagement by the NDP, and they sought increased transparency around how their tax dollars were spent. And I, too, share that concern. Mr. Speaker, Albertans are some of the hardest working people in the world. We're people with a can-do attitude. We buckle down to get the job done. And we like to enjoy this great province for everything it has to offer. Mr. Speaker, my constituents in Airdrie-Cochrane, they want to retain as much of their hard-earned money as possible through low taxes. But they also want to make sure that government expenditures are completed with due care and attention. Unnecessary outlays are certainly not something that is appreciated in this province. Wasteful spending by previous governments increased debt, which diverted more and more money away from operating budgets to service that accumulating debt. Money that would have been better served working for the people of this province through our valued public services. Excessive government spending can also lead to inflationary pressure. As more money floods the market, it increases liquidity and in turn decreases its value. You don't have to look very far to find an example of this out-of-control, unchecked spending. You simply look at the federal government, the federal Liberals. The Prime Minister of Canada provides a great illustration of what not to do when managing a budget. As the leader of this country, he stated in an interview, and I quote, "When I think about the biggest, most important economic policy this government, if re-elected, would move forward, you'll forgive me if I don't think about monetary policy. You'll understand I think about families." So what a fascinating comment, Mr. Speaker. And the honourable member from Red Deer South, he's referred to the PM as Canada's first NDP Prime Minister. And this categorization fits the narrative perfectly. NDP governments are known to spend with reckless abandon and have little interest for checks and balances, and no worry of a wasteful spending. There's simply a lack of accountability, and they do it in the name of families. And Mr. Speaker, this socialist philosophy has it wrong. If one was concerned about families, they would be worried about their future, worried about their children and their grandchildren and how they're supposed to pay for these reckless spending habits. Now, parents, they earn their income the hard way, save for the future of their family. And they do this to leave a little something behind, provide their children with a nest egg. They do not ignore monetary policy and claim that this is in the best interest of their family. That is completely contrary to the premise. And this type of activity is selfish. If parents spent every penny that they earned and went deep into debt, they would become a huge burden on their children, as it would become the child's hardship to care for their parents. So governments have no right to claim that wasteful spending habits are done with families in mind. And wild spending habits of irresponsible governments lead eventually to increased taxes. Somebody has to pay for it. It's the tax and spend mentality, Mr. Speaker. Property taxes, carbon taxes, taxes on utilities, payroll taxes. There's new taxes that are surfacing regularly, and the list of them goes on and on. And socialist governments are addicted to spending. They run huge deficits and expect others to pay for it without asking questions. Take, while making life more expensive, leaving citizens frustrated. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. That is why I'm appreciative of the member from Red Deer South bringing forward this legislation to implement a plan, a method, something to safeguard citizens with the goal of providing greater transparency on those tax dollars extracted from hardworking Albertans. And this act will ensure that providers of publicly funded services detail their spending habits to Albertans. Really, what it is it's a report card to the citizens of the province, a way for every Albertan to measure success or failure of their institutions, to compare year-over-year results or examine and analyze how our province stacks up against other jurisdictions. This disclosure obligation, in my mind, is a common-sense approach, one that provides more visibility and awareness to not only the citizens, but also to those government institutions. That awareness will provide more scrutiny from the public, but it will, in turn, make those organizations more accountable. The designated public services in question, they're yet to be determined. But they would be chosen based upon consideration of known costs, those that have the greatest need to improve, and where the largest benefit from disclosure lies for the public. This could include everything from hospitals to schools and universities to continuing care centres. Albertans want to know where their money is going and how it is being spent, and this legislation will do exactly that. When Albertans have questions as to why public or post-secondary tuition fees are changing, they'll be able to see exactly how a university is spending their money and compare it with ease. Mr. Speaker, the second goal of this act is to instill in Albertans the true cost of public services. We enjoy some of the highest quality services in the world, and we're grateful to have them. That said, they do come with a cost. Nothing is free, and taxpayers are on the hook. So it is our hope that with greater transparency will come a greater appreciation of these shared costs. Mr. Speaker, we know that these services are investments. They're investments in future generations who will one day lead this province. And yet it is troubling that there is a general lack of understanding for the cost of these investments, which is why instilling a sense of stewardship in our public resources is important. But those who do not pay attention to monetary policy are certainly not going to care about overspending of tax dollars. With the implementation of this bill, we will change all of that, because additional watchdogs, that being the citizens of Alberta, they'll be watching and paying attention to wasteful or unnecessary cost overruns. The repercussions of poor financial management on the part of both individuals and governments and certain unnamed drama teachers leads to a lack of care and understanding of fiscal policy. And Mr. Speaker, our government inherited a financial mess, but fortunately, our policies are again getting this province back on track and open for business. With greater transparency about how tax dollars are being spent and greater accessibility to the true cost of public services, we'll be able to make better decisions that will get Albertans back to work and doing the things that they love to do with a little more cash in their jeans. So again, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member from Red Deer South for introducing this timely legislation, and I want to encourage all members of this House to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.